Welcome to Season 3 of the Guardians of Hope podcast. We are a community of parents, educators, health, legal, and tech experts dedicated to positively impacting children's lives. The thoughts and opinions of my guests are not my own. This is a platform for sharing. Hey, welcome everyone. In today's digital age, parents face a shocking reality that most don't see coming. Over 70% of child sexual abuse cases involve another child or a teen as the perpetrator. Add artificial intelligence and smartphones into the mix, and we're dealing with an entirely new landscape of harm that's escalating rapidly. According to recent research from Thorn, 1 in 4 teens have either seen or know someone who's been targeted by AI-generated nude images, and these incidents doubled in 2024 alone. What's particularly devastating is that the majority of these deepfake nudes are being created by classmates or ex-partners. Today, we're joined by Jenny Coleman, Director of Stop It Now, a national leader in child sexual abuse prevention. Jenny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So why don't we dive in and please tell us about your background and your work to start.
Sure. My name's Jenny Coleman. I'm the director of Stop It Now, which is a national child sex abuse program. I've been the director for about 10 years, having been here for about 13, 14 years, where I began as the director of our helpline. I'm a licensed clinician here in the state of Massachusetts, and for the first 20, 30 years of my career, I had been working on behalf of youth's well-being, children and teenagers who were in the so-called system, in foster care, in residential programs, and also practicing therapy with both the children and with their families. And I've just been committed for many years in children and families' well-being in a variety of ways, making sure that they have the help and support that they need, and also the resources that they need to have healthy relationships and hopefully thrive.
Yeah. Jenny, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I'm really looking forward to diving into this topic with you. That statistic that I talked about, that over 70% of reported child sexual abuse cases involve another child or teen, is staggering and probably surprises many parents. How do we help parents understand that peer-to-peer abuse is often the greater threat than the stranger danger that we all grew up with?
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great question, because it is so shocking to parents. It's been a lot easier to actually think about the risk that's out there, the monster, if you will, that lives outside of our family. But we've known for a number of years that in actuality, it's not stranger danger, that kids or families do um, know the person who has abused them up to 90% of the time. So that stranger danger is an old fallacy that gets in our way of prevention. Further, many of us who have worked with kids for so many years know that kids and sexual behavior problems, unfortunately, are way more common than we were talking about. We have the tendency to excuse children's sexual behavior problems or even just sexual exploration that may be normal and developmentally appropriate, but still can be concerning without a lot of support and education and parents' engagement. So I think the notion that if we talk about children's sexual behavior problems with each other means that, oh no, we're talking about, kids who could be sexually abusing someone, or, who could end up in jail. But we need to talk about them early, and the sexual behaviors that just at a very low bar begin to feel unsafe, begin to feel uncomfortable, and set up dynamics between kids that begin to kind of grow into bigger problems when we're not comfortable talking about it and making sure that kids have the information that they need about their bodies, about sexual development, about relationships. And so part of it's just getting over those barriers and seeing that we can keep kids safe from sexual harm. We just have to have those conversations earlier and earlier with
Yeah.
ourselves as parents and caregivers, but also with our children. Um, and, we're going to talk about this, but, kids are practicing relationships in all sorts of ways, not just in their in real time lives, but online. And so
Hmm.
when we think about, stranger danger, in fact, this is kids are engaging with kids and youth all over. And when we say you don't know who's out there, we don't, you're talking to strangers. For these kids, these are friends of theirs. So we just need to reshape some of how we've been thinking about how to talk to kids about safety, because the world has opened up their world. And so we need to be more
Yeah.
responsive to that.
Yes, it's very delicate, but you're so right about starting these conversations earlier and earlier because they're becoming more exposed at an earlier age. So with that, with AI generated nude images doubling in 2024 and being and most being created by classmates or ex-partners, how should parents approach conversation? So we talked about, just approaching the barriers or lifting those barriers up and approaching it from a younger age. But how do parents talk about it? How do we have these conversations about digital consent and boundaries with their teens?
Right. Well, we don't have to wait to talk about it
Hmm.
just in regard to online behavior. So we're already talking to kids about how to treat each other, what to do when you're scared, what the rules are, and even what happens when the rules are broken. So we can translate that to this other part of their world. And I want to emphasize, because I think we often think, how do I protect my child from being harmed? Of course, that's our priority. And we also have to be having conversations with kids about being good digital citizens themselves.
Hmm.
So, as we're talking with kids about things like being kind, bullying behavior, developing empathy, compassion, respecting privacy, consent, all of those topics that are so important for us to have with kids. Again, we're transitioning that to their own behaviors towards others and in the online world. So, for example, if kids, and they're usually the first to know that another kid is passing around images or content that in some way violates another youth's
Hmm.
privacy, is harassing to them, we can talk to them about what to do when you know that's happening. Who would you tell? How would you know there's a problem? And that's another thing we can do, is really talk with kids about what are the warning signs for you when you
Hmm.
feel that something's feeling kind of wonky, unsafe, is questionable, suspicious. What
Yes.
are the kind of words that others may use, or what's the sense in your body that's like, oh, I'm getting nervous, I have butterflies, that can help you know when to ask for help, walk away from the screen, talk to someone about what's going on.
Hmm. That's great advice. And I talk to my son about this all the time. He's 12, and you want to, as a parent, make sure that you allow them that independence to, learn from things and experiences, but you also have to set those guidelines with them. So it's so important.
And that I
Yeah.
thank you so much. That is
Mhm.
exactly what we need to do. It is sometimes, it feels like a fine line.
Yeah.
And in addition, we're modeling for our kids our own behavior online. How do we walk away? How do we know when there's a problem? What content, what information do I share online? So we can wrap that into a whole family conversation about, in this family, to stay safe, here are some things that I do as an adult, and here are some things that kids have to do. And here are things we all have to do. We don't share each other's private information. For
Yeah.
example, we don't share photos of ourselves undressed. That doesn't answer, the deepfake IA, but it begins to help kids be able to trust their gut, know when to ask for help,
Mhm.
and to give them choices about behaviors, like, oh, I don't, there are ways to go about this, that doesn't mean I just get pulled in and don't know how to dig myself out.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing when and how to ask for help is so important, Jenny.
Huge.
Talking about that, when a child becomes a victim of deepfake nudes or other peer perpetrated sexual abuse, parents often struggle with conflicting emotions, either angry at the perpetrator, but also knowing that the perpetrator is a minor. So, how do parents support their victimized child while navigating the complex reality that another family's child has caused this harm?
Well, I really thank you for that tone too, and really being mindful of the child who is also causing harm, because we do want to remember that they are a child and they need help. And
Yeah.
understandably, the parent of a child who's been victimized, all of the feelings you listed are completely normal. So I think that's one thing to recognize, is just to validate, yes, this is a scary thing. We all want our kids to be
Yeah.
safe, and we want to reassure our children right away that they are not to blame, even if they broke a rule. And that's really, I think, a hard balance for parents. Is I told them not to give this information or share this or even go onto that particular app or website. And so sometimes our first impulse is to kind of, I told you this would happen, or see what that gets you. And I know we're all probably shaking our head, but in that moment, it does feel frustrating that we've tried to give our child, really good instructions about safe behaviors. Kids are
Mhm.
kids, they're going to test boundaries. And we want them to come to us, as we just were talking about, even when they know I broke the rules, but now I'm being threatened, I'm scared. So our first response always wants to be, I am so glad that you told me what's going on. And yes, you broke a rule, but what's more important to me is your safety. So
Mhm.
reassuring them that you, as their parent, their caregiving adult, that you're there to help them stay safe, can that's where we want to start right away for children in terms of healing and recovery, based on how this has impacted them.
Mhm.
It's possible things could go in a lot of different directions. It is certainly not outside of the realm of question that you wouldn't want to report this behavior,
Right.
because it still is illegal. We know that it's another youth, but we also want to get that youth support. And we also want to demonstrate for our child, kind of, these are the steps when your rights have been violated, when the law has been broken, that we do, right? And so that may be starting off with the local police. It could start off also by contacting the parents of the child, if that's
Yeah.
known, if they're know who they are. It could also include contacting Child Protective Services. While none of these may have, the police or child protection services may not have all the answers to rectify it, it still can be good information to help determine, are there other factors involved in this case somebody needs to look at.
Mhm.
NCMEC, NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, also take reports of online exploitation, and so they have their cyber tip line. Highly recommend folks check them out as a resource. And they offer a program called Take It Down, and it's takeitdown.nc, oops, MEC, NCMEC. Just Google takeitdown.org. And they are able to help minors under 18 locate material that has been posted on them that's illegal, and pull it down. So always a good resource, and you can always call Stop It Now's helpline, or reach out to stopitnow.org and go to our helpline, and we can help you with that further. There may be that you want to bring in someone as a professional to talk with your child if they've been impacted in a way that's interfering with, their schoolwork, their daily activities.
Yeah.
As a parent, you may want to seek out support, professional support. You have to be one way for your child, strong. We're going to figure this out. And you need a place to also talk about the fear, maybe the anger, the grief that all of this has brought up for you. That seems like a lot, but healing sometimes is like the whole package. And it's
Yes.
really addressing both the behaviors and the feelings, and you're also reestablishing safety.
Mhm.
What are we going to do moving forward? To help prevent this as best as we can. There are some things that feel very much out of our control these days, and I don't want to ignore that. That there are things that, no matter all the best advice we give to our children, all of the programs we've put on our computers to protect the children,
Mhm.
there's just still risks. So we definitely want to know how to respond in a way that immediately gets kids safe again and helps them feel like I'm going to stay safe while you're addressing whatever else is out there.
Yeah, that's a real proactive way to handle this, Jenny. And you gave a lot of really useful tips for parents to immediately take action, both supportive to their child, the perpetrator, and the parent themselves. But I just have one more question about working in partnership with schools and other, support services that help, given that these are coming from children's own social circles.
Mhm.
How can parents and schools work together to prevent this? Are there programs or educational services that can come into schools and help prevent this when it's actually coming from within the community or within the school?
Well, the first, you said right away the key word is partnership, right? Is that it's really important that schools, parents, staff, volunteers, administrators, school district, folks are able to talk about this. Often, what happens is it's always a catch up. An incident has happened, and there's nothing in the policies and procedures for the school. The parents' handbook doesn't have information. So the more that at the very beginning, any youth serving organization can think about these kinds of scenarios and what their message is and how they will handle that and communicate to parents, you're already ahead of the game then. Um, we really want to set a tone with everybody involved, just kind of even back to that second question, that we want to address children's behaviors that can be harmful to other children through a developmental lens, and certainly with our goal to help all children involved receive the help that they need, and also the guidance that they need, and also help them stay accountable.
Yeah.
So that the school isn't based in kind of a punishment model that when this happens, this is what's going to happen to the kid that caused the harm, but rather when this happens, this is how we are going to address the situation. We are going to gather the stories of the children. We're going to inform the parents.
Mhm.
We may involve other professionals to help us assess the situation. And certainly make the reports if there's any sort of legal requirements that they need to make. But again, in a thoughtful way that's not out to like, we got to just remove the bad apple or ignore, the victim because it's not really, it happened outside of the playground. So really having those conversations early is important. There are absolutely organizations all over the country that offer training to both staff and to students. Stop It Now is one of them in terms of training for adults and staff.
Mhm.
Many find programs that come in and talk to kids about, their bodies, their choices, consent, safe relationships and behaviors. But I always feel that training that doesn't also include the administrators and decision makers and the leaders can be nothing more than a one-shot training. So the school or the youth serving organization has to have a commitment to training, to prevention ongoing, that
Mhm.
it's a part of their core curriculums and orientations for staff and volunteers, that it's part of regular conversations with parents and open houses or PTA or PTO meetings.
Right.
And that it's also conversations for kids about what to do if you need help, where do you go, and that you'll be, again, met with respect and compassion. So it's a multi-pronged effort,
Mhm.
um, but actually on all fronts, from financial to societal to communal, the payoff is huge when we can keep kids safe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Jenny, thank you so much for discussing this important topic. Uh, can you tell us where we can learn more about Stop It Now and how anyone can reach out if they want more information?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I actually want to share two websites. One is
Sure.
Stop It Now, www.stopitnow.org. That is our home primary website for all adults concerned about the safety of children. We have a toll-free confidential helpline also available through email and chat. Anybody, parent, neighbor, family member can reach out and ask any question confidentially about children's protection and prevention. Loads
Mhm.
of free resources, information about training. And then What's Okay, WHATSOK.org, is our
Mhm.
companion site and is one that we hope folks will share with the youth in their lives, 13 through actually young adult age 22. And
Mhm.
it's for youth to ask questions about concerning sexual thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So, again, thinking about prevention and conversations that we need to have, this is a resource for youth to have those earlier, and also offers a helpline,
Oh,
and lots of
great.
other information to help youth, yeah, get the help and support and information that they need.
Jenny, it was great speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for being willing to talk about this subject. It is so critical. So
Mhm.
thanks for having me.